going on, guys? Welcome to the LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, here with Jordan Ellis to preview UFC 265, which is coming up this weekend. Jordan, how you been, mate?
Yeah, been good. Obviously, it went the best card in the weekend, but caught some of that. Looking forward to the big one this weekend, and I know we've lost the Nunes fight, but it's still a stacked card, and I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, well, that card wasn't meant to be a lot that one on the past weekend, and some of the fights on the main card weren't the best. It wasn't the greatest card, but I was surprised to see how many people actually tuned in. Did you see the numbers? It was almost, I think it was 780,000 average people, and it peaked at 900 something thousand. That's just insane, in my opinion. What do you think?
It's crazy. I'm sure the UFC will be putting on more of them cards then if they can get away with it. Yeah, the main event was a good showcase fight for Sean Strickland. I think he looked excellent and he dominated the fight. He really did put a beat on Uriah Hall and he showed a bit of everything. 30 years old, he seems primed and ready for the title and a title run anyway. And I think it might be Luke Rockhold next to him. A star might have just been born and so it was good for that. But I was surprised here that they outranked the Bellator show, which did have genuinely, two of the best featherweights on the planet fighting and still managed to outrank them. That's the pulling power of the UFC.
Yeah, 100%. I guess we'll get to that card as well when we get to news. But right now, UFC 265 to be headlined by the interim heavyweight title fight between Derrick Lewis and Ciryl Gane. A fight that a lot of people didn't really expect. We thought it was going to be Lewis versus Ngannou. It was shaping up to be that way. And then last minute, about a month ago now, we found out this is the fight we're getting, which I'm not mad at. Do you think there was any need for an interim title? And even if there was no need, are you happy we get to see this fight?
I'm happy with seeing the fight, but obviously there's no need for an interim title other than to sell this card because, right now in this situation, the reality is that there shouldn't really be a title fight on this card after Nunes has dropped out. This isn't a genuine world title fight. Francis Ngannou is still going to be the champion after this. So it's just made to, sell pay-per-views. They think it sells pay-per-views. The fighters get a bump. They get a bump for, being in a title fight as well. So it's no harm, really. It's just it could have all been solved by the UFC being prepared to wait for Ngannou for a month or two, but the just pure impatience on their side and they booked this. But nonetheless, it's a good fight. I am looking forward to it. It's a good clash of styles. It's just obviously the title stuff does overshadow it slightly, but I'm sure. But as the fight comes to fruition, everyone will forget about that and just focus on what a great matchup it is.
And it is a great matchup, but definitely a clash of styles here. You got the power puncher in Derrick Lewis, who's going to go out there and try and put him away, trying to find a knockout, and the assassin Ciryl Gane, who's going to try and pick his shots. He'll probably try and put Lewis away, but he's going to play it safe and try and stay on the outside. I expect that we'll see a different kind of Derrick Lewis in this fight than we did in his last fight against Curtis Blades or whatnot. I expect him to come forward a lot in this fight and try and be the one pressuring Gane back. Is that what you expect to see from Lewis in this fight?
Yeah, I think it's very obvious, what he needs to do. He needs to go in there and really put it on Gane. He's never, he's still relatively new to MMA and he's in with a wily veteran who's got, the most knockouts in heavyweight history. So it's set up for, for Lewis to go and pull something crazy off and spring another huge upset. But Gane will be prepared for that. He seems always calm, cool, collected, even in fight mode. And we've seen him come through a good few tests now, and it's on to the next one. So yeah, it's all about Lewis trying to land that shot and Gane's trying to avoid it, and potentially tagging him.
And I think with this fight, there's a risk for the UFC here that Ciryl Gane goes out there and just is able to dance around Derrick Lewis and just beats him in every single round, dominates the fight, but doesn't do anything exciting. So do you think that is a risk for the UFC? If that's the scenario at the end of the day, going into a fight against Francis Ngannou, do you think that's enough to sell the fight? Even without the storyline of them being training partners and the whole France MMA thing, do you think that if Ciryl Gane comes out of this without a finish or without going through the gauntlet, you know what I mean? If he comes out of it unscathed after 5 rounds of just outpointing, do you think that the fight between Gane and Ngannou would sell itself? Or if Derrick Lewis wins, we know it's going to be a knockout, that sells itself. But how do you feel about Gane's odds in the next fight in terms of selling potential?
I think it's all about if they can go to France and how quickly they can go to France and do that fight. I feel that is a fight for the French fans, and they'll potentially put that off because I don't expect Gane to look, super exciting. He hasn't, for most of his career, but he still gets put in these spots. And I think the UFC are definitely backing him, despite his, relatively, slow performances against Volkov and Rosenstruck. Big wins. I'm not taking anything away from him, but in terms of heavyweight action and, what the UFC after, it doesn't really seem to be Gane. But they're putting him in these spots, and maybe Derrick Lewis will bring her out of him. Maybe Derrick Lewis his forward pressure, everything he brings, Gane might get a big knockout and really make a statement in this one. I'd love him to, because I am kind of ready to jump on board, but not quite ready, because the performances have been lackluster, although they've been impressive and he's been winning. I'm still not convinced. So yeah, I think Gane and Ngannou probably only happens if they can go to France. I think if Gane looks unimpressive or pretty boring, they might go back to John Jones with a bigger offer, and that's what you'll see.
And that wouldn't be the worst thing, but this is the fight we're talking about now. And Ciryl Gane, for him in this matchup, there's a lot to like in this. Like, he's much more technical, he's faster, he's longer, he's bigger. The thing is, I've seen Derrick Lewis wilt and be defeated many times in the cage. You've never seen that from Gane. So if you're a Gane fan, this is a great fight for you, and it's something that you probably want to put your money on your guy. And I think the body is going to play into it big time. I think you see Gane to go to Derrick Lewis's body non-stop, whether it's with kicks from the distance or if you can get him up against the cage into a clinch situation, just big hooks to the body. I think that's going to be money for him in this fight, because it's not a smart idea for someone as technical as Gane to get in there and just exchange blows in the pocket. He's going to try and pick him apart from the outside. And I think if you find a finish from Gane in this fight, that's how it's going to be. But on the other hand, do you think that, in your opinion, what's the likeliness we see Derrick Lewis go out there and land a massive knockout blow like he did against Curtis Blades, which was a huge upset? Do you think that there's a chance we see that in this fight? And if we do you think that there's any chance of it in the later rounds? Because let's not forget, this is 5 rounds.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty big chance, because obviously you're saying about Derrick Lewis wilting, and I feel like Gane does have what it takes to take him out. I think Derrick Lewis's last maybe 5 losses have all been by TKO or submission, so you can take him out. But I just feel like heavyweight, and I've said this a few times when we spoke about Volkov, it's like heavyweight's all about just trying to get the opponents out there as quickly as possible. I really don't like it when these heavyweights pity-patter punches and be too technical, because that power remains until the 5th and final round. We've seen it before, and we could potentially see it again from Lewis this weekend. So I think as long as he's in there and he can take the jabs and the punches all day, I think for Gane's got to try and put the pressure on him and tire him that way, tire him out and then knock him out. I don't think you're going to get him with a clean punch and take him out that way. So, yeah, as long as Derrick Lewis is in there, he's in the fight, and we've seen him, he's knocked out so many people when you don't think it's going to happen. So, Gane, we can't get too carried away. Is it 8-0, 9-0? Fairly new to the sport. So it wouldn't be the biggest upset Derrick Lewis has pulled in his career. Definitely not.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get final picks on this one then.
It's a tough one. Yeah, I've got to go Gane. I think stylistically, he should be able to have it all his own way. And I wouldn't be surprised if he actually makes a statement and finally gets that finish, at the upper echelons that we've been waiting for. And he's got the kicks, he's got the punches, he's got the range. He's very technical. He's got it all, and it's hard to back against him in this one. But how many times you say that about Derrick Lewis and then he pulls it off? So wouldn't be surprised, but I'm picking Gane.
Yeah, I think you have to pick Gane in this one, like you said, because of all those reasons. But also, let's look at the times he's wrestled in the octagon. He's mainly gone to the clinch first and then worked a takedown from there. He's not shooting in from a distance like a Curtis Blades did. He's not going to get caught by one of these big knees or uppercuts. If he goes to the ground, it's going to be against the fence, so he's going to work his way down. But I don't really expect to see that in this fight, although he has that in his tool belt if he needs to use it. So I'm going to take Gane as well, but I wouldn't be the most shocked if Lewis can pull something off here.
No, absolutely not. I think he's just got to stay behind his punches, wouldn't even bother with the kicks. Literally just try and jab his head off and line him up for the big right hand and then try and put him away that way, because I think the kicks might leave him, vulnerable to an overhand, and that's how Lewis is going to get him. But I guess we'll see on fight night. I'd really love to see Gane go out and really make a statement and stop Lewis, emphatically. More likely it's gonna go the distance. It's gonna go a few rounds, and Derrick Lewis will always be dangerous. So yeah, Gane, but wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, so the new co-main event is a fight that I don't really see going the distance, and that's between Jose Aldo and Pedro Munhoz, two guys who are going to stand and bang, I'd imagine, in this one. So it should be a bit of fireworks here. What are your thoughts on the matchup?
Yeah, it's a great matchup, but I do see it going the distance. I'm picking a fight tonight. This is it. I think both guys are really durable. I think Pedro Munhoz might be the most durable in the bantamweight division. He's a tough man. And I expect him to look good. I expect him to look really good, and I expect Aldo to look good. I think Aldo might just have a bit much for him. You know, when technically Aldo may not be at the top of his game, but he's still better than the vast majority of fighters on the planet. Most people in this bantamweight division, and I think ultimately he'll just nick it. He might have to fight off a late comeback attempt in the third round, but I think he'll have done enough good work in the first 2 rounds to get it done.
Look, I think the opposite in this one, actually. I looking at Jose Aldo's last fight against Chito Vera, there was still holes you could see. He lost the second round. He made the wisest decision to go into the wrestling in the third round and take his back and just dominate him that way. But he didn't look like this dominant force which we've seen so many years ago. That Aldo seems to be gone, and this Aldo is great. But someone like Pedro Munhoz, who doesn't typically get finished himself, goes forward non-stop, throws non-stop leg kicks, and just comes out here. I think someone like this is going to cause issues for an Aldo at this point in his career. And I think that Munhoz can probably get him out of there. I think he can get him out of there in a similar way to how Petr Yan did. I think Munhoz's pressure and his game with his leg kicks, and I think he's got a lot to offer in this one.
Yeah, I think in 5 rounds I would be more on board with that. It's just 3 rounds. I think Jose Aldo at this stage of his career is kind of made for 3-round fights. You know, when we've seen him beaten, he's wilted under the pressure. So, you know, the Max Holloways and the Petr Yans, the performance they put on, he looked good early, but then eventually he wilts under the pressure and everything that's going on. So can Munhoz put that type of pace on in 3 rounds and do enough, you know, to either force a stoppage or at least get 2 rounds in the bank? I'm not sure. It is a close fight. I do edge Aldo just about, but yeah, Aldo I'm picking.
Fantastic fight, and I think it's a good supplement for the co-main event after losing the title fight, which, let's be honest, didn't have as much intrigue towards it. We kind of knew what was going to happen there. No disrespect to Pena, but hey, we got this as our co-main event now. And before that, we have welterweights Michael Chiesa and Vicente Luque. Really interesting fight, really important fight in the division, seeing as both guys are either edging or in the top 5 from memory. Not too sure. But either one of these guys could fight for a title next. Is that what you're thinking?
No, I don't think so. I think these are the guys with the lesser weight. There's a big backlog at welterweight, and I'm just glad we're finally seeing, you know, some movement in the division. So they're both good guys, but it's probably a couple or 2 or 3 wins away from that title shot, because they're not the biggest names. They're gonna really have to drag it out to someone else's hands. So yeah, I'm just glad to see Colby against Kamaru booked. I'm like Gilbert and Leon. The fact that they're going at each other, seem to be wanting to make that fight happen. Masvidal's in there, so yeah, this is a good fight. I'm edging Chiesa. I think the grappling might just be a bit too much for Luque, especially over 3 rounds, and he'll move on and he'll get a big fight next. Maybe not a title shot, but maybe a Wonderboy, maybe a Masvidal, maybe, you know, there's lots going on in the division, and whoever wins as you know, they're on to the big leagues.
Look, this is, I think, the first time we've previewed a card where we've had different takes in the first couple of fights. I think Luque takes this one, and the reason why I say that is I just haven't seen him out-wrestled from memory. Can you remind me of a time where he's been out-wrestled? Maybe I'm misremembering. He
got tapped by Kevin Lee, didn't he? He's been tapped by Masvidal as well as a while back. You know, he's a well-talented fighter, but I think that's the way Chiesa's going to go, and that Chiesa's got his one way to fight, hasn't he? And he's very good at it. And I think he'll be too good for Luque. I do think eventually Chiesa at the upper echelons will get caught out, but Luque's still such a young man, so we're seeing him come along so fastly. So I wouldn't be surprised if he you know, stuffed all the takedowns, looked fantastic, and won this fight. But just based on everything I've seen, I expect Chiesa to grind this one out.
And if it stays on the feet, I think there's no denying that Luque's going to have a distinct advantage there. I mean, look what he did against Tyron Woodley. Even after being quite wobbled and looked like he was on his last legs for a second there, he managed to turn it around and finish him with the Darce choke. But all honesty, probably could have finished him on the feet because Woodley looked kind of rocked. So there's no reason why he can't go out there and do this to Chiesa as well. it will be that takedown pressure from Chester that he has to stuff, though. And if he can't stop the takedown, it's just going to keep coming. And from Chester's grappling game, he's going to find a position where he's dominant. He's going to stay there, and he's going to look for submissions, but he's going to stay there. He's not going to shift around too much. So if he gets Luque's back, I think the whole round will be on Luque's back if he can't find a finish. You know what I mean? So I think he really needs to be quite... He needs to be like a pressure fighter himself in this fight, Luque. He can't be backed up against the cage where Chester's going to shoot on him. He needs to come forward and try and push the action at his pace. Otherwise, we're going to see a lot of grappling and possibly a submission because, like you mentioned, Chester's a pretty good grappler, so wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and I think Luque was saying he's always going for fights of the night if he doesn't get the early KO. So I think if Luque wins, we're getting one of the best fights of the night. I think he stuffs the takedowns and it turns into a really messy fight on the feet. If Chester gets it, I think it'll be a bit more boring, a bit more, wrestling heavy and maybe a tap. But I see him grinding out. I do see him grinding out. But again, another great fight, another 50-50 fight where you're not really sure and you're just stumping for someone. So this is a brilliant match. And as I said, very, very glad to see the welterweight division finally moving.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this card. There's a lot of fights on here like that. Before it, we have a matchup which has been booked twice previously, I believe. We've previewed this one before, I'm sure. Tecia Torres against Angela Hill. What are your thoughts on this fight? I'm sure they haven't changed since the last time we spoke about
it. I really like Tecia Torres, especially in the last two fights. She was on a really tough losing streak against great fighters. Then she's come back, dropped down maybe a level or two, and she's looked fantastic. So for me, this is the next step back into title contention because Angela Hill, she has got that, she's got the reputation, she's got the name. She could potentially have the wins. A lot of people think she beat Gudea and Michelle Watson. I don't think she did, but you could make a case for that. So I'm going for Tecia Torres. I think she will overwhelm her, just with the pure pace. And but again, 3-round fight, close. It will be nip and tuck, but I expect Torres just to get the best of it.
I don't specifically have a pick on this one, but I will say that the loser of this fight's going to have a tough time working their way back up into any meaningful position in the rankings because both girls are kind of like, in my opinion, at a crossroads where they need to get a win here to get back into that upper echelon of the division and working towards title fight or whatever. But yeah, that should be a fun one. Hopefully we see it actually come to fruition this time. It doesn't get pushed off again to a different card. But opening the main card, we have bantamweights Son Yudong against Casey Kenny. Yudong coming off a loss to Kyler Phillips. Kenny coming off a loss to Dominic Cruz from memory. I could be wrong about that one, but good matchup. I like this one.
Yeah, really good. I've kind of jumped off the Son Yudong hype train because it's been, really stop-start lately. Obviously, the draw against Marlon Vera, people, was it a draw? People didn't think he deserved that.
No, it was a win for Yudong.
Split, yeah, and then it was a draw against Stamman, wasn't it? So, and then the Carla Phillips one, he didn't look too great in, and this is 3 fights since 2019, so it just hasn't been great for him lately. He's still only 23, lots to do, but I think Casey Kenny is just going to be a bit too slick. I think he's been mixing it with Dominic Cruz. He really gave him as good as he got in that fight. And Yudong, he got absolutely dominated by Carla Phillips. So there's levels to opponents. And I think Casey Kenny's just being active, mixing it. He seems to be getting better and better. And I think that even though he lost that Dominic Cruz fight, will stand him in good stead. And yeah, so I think Yudong's got a bit of work to do, and it'll show as Kenny will pretty much ease the victory in this one.
And look, even though Yudong looked quite good in his start of his UFC career, he went undefeated for quite a while there until he took that loss. I think it's his first UFC loss, right, against Carla Phillips. Before that, he did have that draw, but that was because of the point deduction. But look, he hasn't looked invincible. It's not like he looked invincible and then he came up against Carla Phillips. A lot of people, myself included, thought he lost to Marlon Vera. In that Stamen fight, there was problems for him in the later rounds. He hasn't looked like an invincible fighter. So I think there is a lot of grounds for Kenny to win this one. And if I'm a betting man, I'm taking the underdog. I'm not sure who that is in this, but I'd imagine it's Kenny, and I think that'd be a pretty safe bet in this one.
Yeah, it's just, Yudong's only 23 as well, so he's got work to do, and I hope he's doing it in the gym and things like that. So we might, as we say, with these young guys, they improve so quickly from fight to fight. So you can't bite too much into his last fight, but I just feel like at this point, Kenny is the more polished fighter. He is coming along quicker. He is active. He's got everything going for him. So, but Yudong has got that knockout power. So but again, Kenny showed no chin issues. He's a tough man. So I like Kenny in this one. I really do.
All right, so that's the main card wrapped. We'll go to the prelims now. I just want to grab one and then I'll throw it over to you. The one, you probably know which one I'm going to pick, is the featured prelim between Bobby Green and Rafael Fiziev. What do you think of this fight?
Yeah, it's a great fight, isn't it? I'm liking Fiziev, especially at lightweight. He looked brilliant last time out, was against Moicano, I think, wasn't it?
Was the last one.
So yeah, brilliant fight. And Bobby Green, he looked fantastic last year as well. He went on that little run, didn't he? I think he won maybe 3 or 4 fights. He was challenging Kevin Holland for that spot. Yeah, 3 fights. He looked great against Venata and Alan Patrick and Clay Guida. So dropped one to Moises, but he'll be back, and he'll be a tough fight. But Fiziev, I believe he's destined for top 5, and I expect he'll make this look as easy as he should make it look. But again, Bobby Green's he's not an easy fight, but Fiziev is that good in my opinion. I think he'll prove it.
I think we're really going to see Fiziev's clinch game and his grappling tested possibly in this fight, because I don't think it's going to be any secret to Bobby Green that standing on the feet with someone as talented a striker as Fiziev is not a great idea, especially when Bobby Green has such a boxing heavy style. So I think he's going to look to close the distance a lot in this fight, and there's no reason why he can't get a takedown here, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because when we previewed the Moicano fight, I mentioned that Moicano should lean on his wrestling, but then with the fight day, he just didn't do it, so that ended up being to his detriment. So I expect Bobby Green to rely on his wrestling a bit here, but it would be hard for me to pick against Fiziev because he has looked so good. Even the one he lost, he's looked so good, so I would definitely take Fiziev in this fight. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit of a war here. This could be a fight of the night. Who knows?
Yeah, I think Bobby Green's he's tough, his game. I just think levels to this game, there is levels, and I think Fiziev is on another level, and I think he'll prove that. Bobby Green's a tough man, though. Will he be able to take him out, or will he just, outskill him? Interested to see. Again, that's another one that could potentially, erupt into a fight of the night, but I'm sticking with Aldo Munhoz for that one. Besides that, we've got a few other good fights. I really like the Ed Herman Alonzo Menifield one. Really good fight. I think Ed is coming off that was it the controversial win over Mike Rodriguez?
Must have been, yeah.
And and then Alonzo is coming off. I really like Alonzo. I think it's this is a good fight for him. I expect Alonzo to go out and absolutely to blast Ed Herman away. I think he's just got too much power, and Ed won't be able to stand up to it, and he'll continue his rise back up the division after them 2 tough losses. And besides that, is there anything else you've got your eye on?
Not particularly, but I mean, Manel Kape's back on the card. He was a bit of a prospect when he entered the UFC last year. Was it late last year or early this year? I can't remember. But he had a lot of steam behind him then. Kind of dissipated, seeing he's dropped his last 2, but still keen to see if he can swing it. Did he win his last one? Maybe I'm blanking, but I can't remember. But it's good to see him on the card, see what he has to do in this fight against Ode Osborne. Speak.
Yeah, he lost his last one. And then besides that, it's Carolina's back against Jessica Penn, so that's like a blast from the past, them 2 fighters, because I think Jessica Penn come back and got a good win last time, but Carolina, it's been a while, so yeah, it'll be good to have her back. It's a really good card, obviously it's not what the UFC expected, but they still churned out something, obviously we wanted Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou, Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena, but we still got a good fight topping it, lots going on. You always get your value for money on these cards. I think it's going to be a banger.
All right, so we'll move on to some news now. And the first thing I see here is Luke Rockhold's ready to accept the Sean Strickland fight. Do you want to see this? Do you think it's a good return fight for Rockhold to come back to?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect fight. Obviously, Sean's, talking a lot of trash, and Rockhold's got the reputation for being chinny, but this is because Strickland is not a power puncher at all. So in terms of easing yourself back in, and obviously it's not an easy fight, but not just jumping in with, some Francis Ngannou type who's going to just try and take your head off. It's going to be a really technical fight, and, Rockhold will not get took out by one punch from Sean Strickland, and I've probably jinxed it now, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's a great fight. I think Sean Strickland, as I said earlier, he's on to something now. I feel like he's a genuine contender, and I think it's a really good fight, and he keeps talking that smack, and he's always in the news for chatting some nonsense, but this is what happens, and I think the performance are backing up the words now, and he gets himself a big fight. Yeah, I think both men will be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. I think it's a great one to ease him back in. Other than that, we have other stuff on the weekend. Obviously, the Bellator Featherweight Championship was on the line, and AJ McKee, I believe it was, just from memory, AJ McKee beat Patricio Pitbull for the strap to win the Grand Prix. He secured himself $1 million prize and the belt, and now he wants to go up and challenge for the belt at lightweight against Pitbull, obviously, as well. Do you think that's a good move for him, and what did you think of his performance on the weekend?
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I think he's the next, MMA superstar in my opinion. Is 18-0 now.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the brilliant backstory with his dad and then growing up. Probably one of the first kids who's at 3 years old actually doing all the mixed martial arts. So it's it's a fascinating story. He's got everything. He's got the talent, obviously the knockout ability and the finishing ability. He speaks well. The backstory, as I said, and now he's got the belts and $1 million. And yeah, I think it would suit him to go up to lightweight and do that rematch, because I don't see a way for Pitbull to win. He's undersized. He's outmatched in my opinion. Brilliant show, brilliant performance. Next superstar, I think, if Bellator can market him right, or UFC can actually grab him, I think that's going to be tough. But yeah, brilliant performance.
That was my next question. I'm not sure how many fights he has left on his contract, but do you think when his contract runs up, the UFC try and bring him over here?
Yeah, I'm not sure how Bellator contract works. I think once you're champion, the contract changes, and maybe it's not as easy to get out of when you're a champion. I'm not sure how many Bellator champions actually just go straight over to UFC. So be interested to see how that works out. Apparently, like Dana White, he's pretty notorious for being being a naysayer really when it comes to Bellator. So anyone who does good outside the UFC, he poo-poos it. But this one, he was like, AJ McKee will speak. Will speak. I feel like he's very, very much aware that AJ McKee is a potential superstar and is looking to sign him. So I'm sure they'll find any inroad they can to actually get that done. And for now, yeah, I think they make the Pitbull rematch at lightweight, and he goes and gets another belt and looks fantastic again, and then we can talk from there. But it's going to be interesting to see if they can actually pull it off.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting. Last bit of news I can see here. Colby Covington will target Adesanya's 185-pound title if he beats Usman. Now, I think if he beats Usman, they do a trilogy. But do you think there's a reality where we see him go up to 85 and challenge for the title before having a trilogy with Usman?
I honestly don't. I think he's trolling, because literally last week he was saying he's Dustin Poirier's bigger than him. So how can you go up against Adesanya, who's just been competing at light heavyweight? Speaking about fighting a heavyweight, he's a big guy. I just don't understand it. I think he's trolling. I watched the video. It felt like just adverts for his little energy drink thing, and he was just saying it. I think more likely if he wins that, obviously we see the trilogy, or we see him, face off against Dustin Poirier. That would be a good fight. So plenty of options. I think Adesanya would be bottom of the list in terms of what he actually wants and what the UFC would be willing to make.
Yeah, no, I don't think the UFC makes that fight. Can't really see that one happening, but a bit of fun. Is there anything news-wise you can think of that we should touch on?
No. Just yeah, it's all gearing up to the fights this week. So yeah, another big card. Can't wait, and yeah, it's gonna be a big one.
Cool. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll speak to you after UFC 265 to recap all the action.
Thanks, guys.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.